Welcome to the Reclaim Your Rise podcast. My name is Lauren Bongiorno, nationally board certified health coach and founder and CEO of Risely Health, where we help people and families impacted by type 1 diabetes take ownership over their lives so that they can transform with more freedom and confidence. Everyone has a different reason to be here. You might be seeking knowledge, support, or community, but at your core, I know that you long for something deeper. You're here for transformation. And that's what the Reclaim Your Rise podcast is all about. But I say we just dive right in. So hello, everyone who is listening. Welcome to another week of Reclaim Your Rise. Really excited about this episode. I put up on Instagram a couple of days ago a Q&A box, and I said, hey, I'm going to do some answering specific questions that you guys have. Submit what you have. There were, almost I think like 100 answers that came or questions that came through. I chose a handful of the ones that were either like repeatedly coming up or ones that I felt really would apply to the majority of people or like the most people listening. So here with me today, because I could do it solo, but I don't know. I'm like listening to my voice straight for 30 to 45 minutes. I'm like, it's going to be so much better to bring someone on to talk about this. So we have Coach Jehan on, and Coach Jehan has been on the podcast. How long ago was it that you were on? Probably like, is it 2 years? A year and a half?
It was like 2 years ago. It was like soon after I started. I think it was around 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. So everybody go back and listen to that episode. We can link it in the show notes, the exact one for Jehan's like background with diabetes. But do you want to give us like a short snippet for anybody who doesn't know you? How long you've had type 1, maybe what management systems you use, and your role at Risely.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so excited to be here and chat with you about these questions that came in. I have had type 1 I'm going on 28 years. I was diagnosed when I was 10. I'm currently on the Omnipod 5 and I use Dexcom, and I'm in auto mode most of the time. But I've been on t:slim, Medtronic, I've done MDI, been around the block with all of them, but now on Omnipod. And right now, I am so excited that I'm on the Risely team, really leading the DCB. And I do have one-on-one clients as well, but it's been just so wonderful supporting the DCB as like the group coaching program where we have, 40-ish plus women where they go on this transformational journey over 3 months, and to watch them grow and learn. And it's been absolutely just wonderful. I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, and we were talking about like what lights you up. And right now she's going through a tough time, and she's like, I'm still trying to figure that out. And she said, does coaching still light you up? I was like, 100%. Like, this is where I'm meant to be. And a wonderful place after going through Risely's programs as a client to be on the other side and helping people. So
I know. I
I don't know if that was a snippet. I could keep going. That's it.
No, I think that was great. And I think what's really cool about you and a few of the other coaches on the team is that you were in the place of struggling at one point. You came through Risely's program, like you changed your life and you're like, I want to go back to school, become a coach, and be able to help other people do that and create transformations in their life. And so it's just this complete ripple impact. So maybe some of these questions, I know for me, some of these questions that came in are things that like I years ago, like probably would be asking and wanting to hear the answers to, and feeling kind of like lost or curious and feeling like I needed to piece things together on my own. And I'm sure you felt that way as well. So how awesome is it that we get to talk about them? And for anybody listening, like, there's going to be pieces of this that will connect with you. Like maybe take what you need, leave what you don't, but you are going to walk away from this conversation with some things that you probably, didn't know that you needed to hear, or, new tool strategies, whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, we've lived it. We know it. I know. Same thing when I was reading the questions. Like, this happened to me, and it still does sometimes. It's
right.
So excited to talk through them.
All right. So let's dive in. The first question is, how do you handle burnout when you feel like you can't talk to anyone about it?
Yeah, that was one of the personal ones too, that I remember feeling burned out. Like before I guess I'll say like my transformation journey, it was like, pretending to be perfect on the outside and then feeling underneath just a mess. And I think it's a question of like, who can you talk to? Like if you feel like you can't talk to anyone, but like, is it because you're trying to talk to people that don't get it and you're trying to explain something to them that they don't understand? I think that's like kind of the lens that I think of it as through. And maybe I'm very biased going through the DCB and I hear so many women saying, it's just so nice that I can talk to people that get it. Like there's someone this round who has had type 1 for over 40 years, and I can so clearly hear her on one of our support calls. At the end, we talk about like, what's your biggest takeaway on this call? And she said, it's just so nice to talk to people who actually get it and understand. So I
Mm,
think if there's like a sense of burnout, it's talking to people who do understand it. And are they in the same like I would meet people who have type 1 and even though they got it, they might not be in the same mindset of like, I want to transform and change my life. And so you still feel like you can't even talk to them about it in a way. So I feel like it's like finding the right people to talk to, if that makes sense.
mm. Yeah, what I'm hearing is not expecting people who don't have type 1 to understand fully because I don't think that they're ever going to. And if you keep searching for that validation of that they are going to understand, it's like you're going to be let down. That's at least what I found. And so shifting it to filling your cup with people in relationships who have type 1 diabetes themselves and can say, hey, like I really truly get what you're going through. I've talked about this before, but this to me like is the epitome of what burnout is. It's one of two ways. One is that your diabetes is all over the place, like ups and downs, and by nature, like if you're having those blood sugar fluctuations, you that is impacting your mood, it's impacting your energy levels, like you have higher risk for anxiety and depression. Like there's a direct correlation there. And then if that's the case, you're not motivated to want to take care of yourself because of your numbers. So that's like one way you burn out. But the other way that I think isn't talked about enough is that other areas of life outside of diabetes are draining you and they're not in alignment. And therefore, diabetes on top of that feels like this extra thing that you just cannot deal with. Like, I remember, I think it was like 2 years ago, I was at this place where like a site change was like going to throw me over the edge. Like the day that my pump expired, which really in reality takes what, 3 minutes to do. I was procrastinating it. I was mad at it. I was like, I do not want to deal with this, right? Like, why do I have to deal with this? And like, nobody else, my husband doesn't have to. And like, we're, I think we were like moving into a new house and there was a million things going on and diabetes on top of it. I was just so annoyed. I think areas, if this is resonating with you, like, and everybody listening, like looking at your relationships, look at your sleep, look at your exercise, look at work, look at hobbies and passion, and rate them on a scale of 0 through 10, where like your fulfillment is nothing at 0, where 10 is like completely fulfilled, and see where they land. And sometimes it's not even the diabetes that you have to work on, but more so like filling your cup in other areas. Like it's so crazy. So I can name a handful of clients that like we've worked with where they come for diabetes burnout, but the work and the program is actually like we talk about diabetes maybe 40% of the time, and 60% of the
Yeah.
time is about like your life. And
Yeah.
like, let's find your alignment where your skills and your purpose and your passions collide. And like, all of a sudden, then diabetes starts to feel easier.
Yeah. 100%. And thinking about how you're not, like you said, not making your time, diabetes feeling so much harder on top of everything else. If we are purposely making some time for our diabetes, then it's not going to be the thing that boils over. If you're like
Mm,
knowing like, okay, I'm going to have a site change today or whatever it is, like the pre-planning will help even as you're figuring out all the other pieces that are out of alignment and getting back into alignment. But like knowing it's the unexpected stress that we know is in our life. And so
yeah.
to plan for it and prepare for it and then be able to kind of like shift and move as you get other things into alignment.
Yeah, and I think too that exercise that we do in the DCB, where we leave that meditative like vision exercise at the beginning, where we have people essentially, it's this whole 15-minute thing, but ultimately they land in this spot, they have a box, they open it, and it's like all of the things that they've acquired and thoughts and feelings of their diabetes since diagnosis, and we walk them through, pulling all those things out and making peace with them. And I mean, like half the group is usually crying because they're like, wow, I didn't realize like how maybe I haven't fully accepted my diabetes or how I actually resent it. And
Mhm.
there's so many different layers of that, but I think a lot of type 1s walk through life just with a facade and we're like, we're strong, we're fine, we're good, but we don't deal with that. I'm going to use the word like trauma that happens. Like you get diagnosed with diabetes and if you just kind of don't take the time to really unpack all of that and what that means for you, like it'll catch up with you for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, taking the time to process it, feel those things, which so many times we say like, "I don't have time," or "I push it away," and then like it creates the ripple effect later on of like the negative things down the line. I don't have time to pre-bolus now or deal with the site change or whatever. Well, then you're high later. But taking that proactive time on the front end will give you more space in life later on.
Right, and I almost look at it too, Jihan, like, I don't know about you, but what is in your face, like, what is coming up, like, really loud in your body is what you were supposed to pay attention to because that's the growth path, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
we wanna, like all this noise, our intuition or our body burning out or being really tired, like, we often resent that because we're like, "Oh, why is this coming up?" And we just wanna move on past it, but that's actually the way, like, that's magnifying and, illuminating really what we have to work on within ourselves and embrace it and just be like, "All right, I'm not in a great place right now, but, like, let's start doing the work and different work than I've currently been doing because what I'm currently doing clearly isn't working."
yeah. As you were saying that, I was thinking, what's the quote? Like, what you resist the most is what you need the most. Like,
Mhm.
it's when you're fighting something so hard and something is out of alignment, it's like, let me pause and see why is my body yelling at me for this right now? What is
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I learned that quote in yoga years ago. I'm so bad at back bends, like the wheel pose and all of that. And the instructor would always be like I would just kind of like opt out of that. And then they would come whisper in my ear, like, what you need the most is what you resist the most. And I'd be like, okay, I guess I'm going up into bridge pose now.
Well,
But
I don't know if you heard as we were talking, when I resist the most, my sensor just expired. Do you hear the beep? It's like beeping 3 times. I'm like, listen, not now. Can we just, we're not,
right.
you
Not the
know,
most convenient time.
of course, we're beeping everywhere.
Of course, it happens. It happens. Okay, let's move on to question number two. So, second question that was sent in says, I'm 12 years T1D and I've had low time and range for years. I want to relearn diabetes. Should I go to a clinic? Should I go to a retreat? What should I do?
I love this question because I think, we as coaches always ask questions back, right? We want to ask,
Now.
we always love to ask questions back. And my question would be, well, what are you hoping to get out of it? What do you want to relearn, right? If you want to relearn how to carb count or when should I pre-bolus or like, nutrition basics and like what is that class or retreat going to give you? But if the low time and range is like, I know what to do, but I keep getting stuck and I'm getting in my own way, then maybe there's like a mindset piece that needs to come with it. And like, I feel like I'm a broken record when I always say like the mind and the body coming together is like where the magic happens because I was like this. It's like, I should be doing this. I know I should be carb counting. I know I should be pre-bolusing, but like there's a mindset block that's not allowing me or it's stopping me from doing those things. So figuring out what are you trying to get out of it? Where are the blocks? What do you really need to learn? And then figure out, well, what's the solution to this, right? Is it just getting a nutrition scale and measuring my food? Or is it like digging deeper and figuring out what's the block here as to why I'm not using the scale that I have?
Yeah, I agree with all that. And I would say the first like foundational layer is I guess you could go both ways. You can say mindset first and then build on top of that. But I think for a lot of people, it's understanding just like the educational gaps that you have to give yourself quick wins. Like if you don't understand, if you're like, I'm willing to do anything and I'm trying, but like there's just, my mindset is there, but there's so many gaps. Like there are little things around hormones or insulin sensitivity or nutrition, fats and carbs and how you bolus for that, or time of day and insulin sensitivity levels, or if you're a female, like your hormonal cycles throughout the month. Like education can be like really empowering because you're motivated, but you're just missing some pieces. But then on the other hand, there are a lot of pieces to your point where we know we should be giving insulin before we eat, or we know that when we eat snacks late at night before bed, we're going to go high over nighttime, right? And it's that like, I know what I should be doing, but it's hard. I haven't been able to like break out of those roadblocks myself, whether it's like relationship to insulin or fear of low or relationship to food. So that's a little bit more challenging. So yeah, to your point, Jihan, I would say if you're listening who submitted this question, like really understand if it's the basics with carb counting and like very transactional kind of things, like talk to your doctor. Like there's probably like a dietitian maybe in your clinic that can go over those basics, with you. But if it's more, hey, I know that I if I could have Googled my way out of this, or I could have like read a book or acquired this information through a TikTok or Instagram and I would have applied it already, it's more than that. Then I would say apply for coaching with our team, because that's, what we're really doing is we're putting you through this entire transformation of education, implementation, and mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And making it sustainable. So there might be people out there who like have the education and have tried it or like need a mix of both. I need the education, but then like I do it for a week and I fall off. Like, I fall off the wagon and I need to get back on. But like, how do you make it sustainable? That's also where like that mindset piece is helpful at the same time as that education.
Yep, absolutely. So the next question is more about newly diagnosed. So this one is, how do I know when my honeymoon is over?
That's
Ugh,
tricky.
honeymoon. Would you want to go back to, okay, so let me ask you a question. If you had would you want to go back to your honeymoon? Like just for like, I don't know, like a week, like your honeymoon numbers. Did you even honeymoon? Do you
No,
remember?
I don't remember. I was 10 and I think I did like a little bit. Like I remember in the beginning my mom talking to the doctors and then saying like, it could be just like her getting adjusted, but
Mhm.
I would not because it'd be harder to predict what was happening, right?
Right?
Like
Yeah.
I would not want to because now I know my patterns. I know what's happening with my cycle. I know when I have this for breakfast, what to expect. And I feel like if you're honeymooning and you're starting to come out of it, like that could be a clue that your honeymoon phase is over. If like let's say for breakfast you always have take 2 units for your breakfast and now all of a sudden your 2 units isn't covering it, like oh hey, like maybe I'm needing more insulin, maybe I'm coming out of the honeymoon, like that would be it. But I would not want to go back. Would you want to go back at all?
No, I would want to not have diabetes for a day. Like I would choose
Yeah.
that. Like that would be great. But yeah, the honeymoon phase, like I
Yeah.
think people glorify it and they're like, all right, it's this little like period where after if I get diagnosed early on, then my pancreas is still creating insulin. But I think it makes, in my opinion, this might be a hot take, the transition to diabetes a little bit harder, because what we see a lot happen is we have people freaking out while they're in their honeymoon phase eating pizza and they're like, my blood sugar went up 20 points. Oh my God. And we're like, oh, take some deep breaths. Like you don't know what's coming. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think like it kind of like gives you an inaccurate representation of like what actually your blood sugars are going to do when your body's not creating insulin anymore. But I mean, had the question directly, like, how do I know when my honeymoon is over? You could get your doctor to draw your C peptide levels, and your C peptide is, you can see it in your blood or in your urine, and it's what your pancreas, part of what your pancreas emits when you are, creating insulin. And so the lower it is, I think zero point 0.8 is the cutoff. So like lower than zero point 0.8 is like when you start getting like signed for, hey, you might have type 1 diabetes. But if you have your starting C-peptide levels, and you can kind of see it tapering off over time. But also I would say when it just starts to get harder, that's when your honeymoon is going to be over. Like when you can really see on a feeling level, like, oh, I used to be able to eat this and not go high, and now I'm eating it and my blood sugars are kind of going crazy.
Yeah.
But it is a slow adjustment depending on when you were diagnosed. If you caught it really early and your A1C maybe wasn't super high, like I met somebody at the JDRF event this weekend, a family who their daughter was on like 4 units of long acting insulin. She's like, I don't, and she was like 16 years old, and like, like she wasn't a kid that should have 4 units of long acting insulin. So
Yeah.
she was like, I don't know if I'm still honeymooning. And then she told me that. And then we were talking about some other things. And I was like, yeah, like, it's your insulin needs are going to go up. That's not like a bad thing. So I think C peptide levels you can get done. And then just like thinking about what your numbers are doing compared to in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking at those patterns. All comes down to those patterns too.
Pattern recognition, baby. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Ooh, I love this question. We haven't really done, I don't think we've done a full episode on this. So we can maybe like make this like a part of the title to know that we're talking about this, because I do get questions. How do you manage alcohol with blood sugars? Wine lowers my blood sugar. Is this just me or am I crazy? You are crazy. What? I've never heard of that.
not crazy.
Definitely
You're
not.
you're definitely not crazy at all. So that is normal to be happening. So what happens is whenever we're drinking, right, our body is focusing on processing the alcohol, our liver is processing the alcohol, and typically our liver is giving us like a little drip of like glucose all the time. So when you have your alcohol and it's processing it, it's like, all right, I'm going to pause giving you a little bit of glucose all the time, and I'm just going to focus on this. So you may have those lows. Some people see highs if you're having like something with carbs, like beer or like a sugary mixer, margarita, whatever it is. Like you might see a spike from the carbs and the sugar, and then like lows later on. But you are not crazy in seeing those. And then the next question is like, what do you want to do about it? Like, what do you currently do? What do you want to do to like know, okay, I have this pattern of having lows after I have my wine. What do I do about it?
Yes. Thank you for bringing the science in there. I feel like we talk so much at Risely about how you can eat so many things and manage your blood sugars when you have the right tools and strategies. And we want to help people live a life of freedom and confidence. And I think at the same time, where it gets really tricky is with alcohol. Like for me, that's like the one thing where I'm like, if you want to figure out how to feel better day to day and not be limited by your diabetes and have the best of both worlds of being able to live your life, but also have in range numbers, I really do not think it can coexist if you are a big drinker. Like I have not seen that possible. It's more so in the relationship to alcohol is the work category. I'm thinking specifically of like kids in college who they're like, I want to show that I can like go out and, drink and have a great time and then, and manage my blood sugar so my parents aren't worried and I don't have to like, and I can be normal. And I get that want and that need so much. Maybe it's not even just, kids in colleges or, adults as well have that, type of maybe lifestyle, but it like, it really just throws your blood sugars for a loop and I find is not super predictable. Like your absorption level, your frequency of drinking, like how yeah, like